The market was loud. Voices shouted, metal clanged, chains rattled. The smell of smoke and fear filled the air. Dozens of cages stood in a long line, each one holding slaves from different worlds. Some were strong and angry. Some were broken and silent. But in the smallest cage sat a girl with silver eyes, her thin arms tied in front of her. She was young, maybe not more than 20. Her skin was pale blue, her hair dark like the night sky. She looked weak, but her eyes were still alive. She had seen cruelty, but she still had hope. That hope was fading now, as buyers walked past her cage, staring at her like she was nothing. But an object, she kept her head low. She knew what would happen if someone bought her. Pain, suffering, endless torture. She had seen it happen to others. No one came back from the slave market free. No one. Then footsteps stopped in front of her cage. She slowly lifted her eyes. A man stood there. Not an alien, not a monster, but a human. Middle-aged, his face marked with lines of time. His hair was dark with streaks of gray. His eyes were calm, almost too calm for a place like this. The girl's heart sank. She thought she understood men like him. Humans could be even crueler than aliens. Some came here just to buy slaves for their twisted games. She whispered in her mind, "Not me. Please, not me." But the man kept looking at her. He didn't smile. He didn't show anger. His face gave away nothing. The slave master walked over. "Human trader, you have an eye for rare things. This one is strong in spirit. She will scream for a long time before she breaks. A perfect choice for those who enjoy pain." The girl's stomach twisted. The words burned into her chest. She wanted to close her eyes, to vanish, but the man spoke. "I'll take her." His voice was steady, deep, and simple. The key turned. The cage door opened. A cold air touched her skin as rough hands pushed her out. Her legs shook as she stumbled forward. The chain around her wrists cut into her flesh. She did not fight. Fighting was useless. She had seen what happened to those who resisted. The man paid the master with silent calm. No questions, no arguments. Just credits passed from one hand to another. Then he looked at her. For a moment, their eyes met. Hers full of fear, his unreadable. He gave a small nod, then turned and began walking. A guard pulled her chain, forcing her to follow him. Her feet dragged across the dusty ground. She looked back one last time at the cages. She saw the faces of others still trapped, still waiting. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Soon they reached the edge of the market. A small ship waited there. Old, scratched, but working. The man entered, and she was pulled inside after him. The door closed with a heavy hiss, and the sound of the market faded away. Inside, the air smelled cleaner. The ship was quiet, only the soft hum of engines. She expected to see tools of pain, chains, whips, cages. But the ship looked plain, almost ordinary. Still, her fear grew stronger. She knew better than to trust what she saw. She thought, "This is only the beginning. He will show his true face soon. He will hurt me like the others." The man sat down in the pilot's seat. He didn't look at her. He pressed buttons. The ship shook, and the engines roared to life. Slowly, they rose into the dark sky, leaving. The slave market behind her heart pounded. She was trapped again, but this time in space. Minutes passed in silence. The man did not speak. He did not strike her. He did not even look at her. He simply focused on flying. Her hands trembled. She pulled her knees close to her chest, making herself small. She waited for him to turn and show his cruelty. She waited for the pain she knew would come, but nothing happened. The silence was worse than shouting. Every second felt like a blade hanging above her head. Why was he waiting? Didn't he begin? Finally, she whispered, barely able to hear her own voice. Why? Why me? The man did not answer. Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed her head against the cold wall. She told herself, he is playing with me. He wants me afraid. That is his game. But still, something was strange. When the ship reached the stars, she saw his reflection in the glass. His face looked tired, not cruel, not excited, just sad. That confused her more than anything. The journey had only begun. But deep inside, a new question was born. A question she did not want to ask. What if he bought her, not to torture her, but to save her? The ship moved smoothly through the endless black of space. Stars shone outside the window, but inside the cabin, silence ruled. The girl sat on the cold floor, her wrists still chained, her knees pulled to her chest. Every beat of her heart sounded loud in her own ears. She thought, this man? Why does he say nothing? Why does he not strike me? She waited for the pain. She waited for the cruelty. It always came. Masters enjoyed making their slaves suffer. Some did it for power, others for fun. She knew the game. She had seen it before. But this man, he just flew the ship. His eyes stayed forward. His hands moved over the controls. No anger, no hunger, just silence. That silence was worse than chains. It made her mind race. She watched him from the corner of her eyes. His shoulders were broad, his movements steady. He was no young man. He looked worn, as if life had already given him too many battles. His face carried scars of time, not of cruelty. And yet, she did not trust him. How could she? Finally, he spoke. His voice was deep, calm, almost gentle. You're safe here. The words struck her harder than a whip. Safe. She laughed bitterly in her mind. Safe was a lie. No one bought a slave to keep her safe. She glared at him, but said nothing. Minutes passed. The engines hummed. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she did not dare ask for food. Asking meant weakness. Weakness meant punishment. Then, without warning, he stood and walked to a small storage unit. He opened it and pulled something out, a small packet of food and a bottle of water. He placed them on the table near her and stepped back. The smell reached her nose. Warm bread. Real bread. Her mouth watered, but she kept her face hard. She thought, it's a trick. He wants me to eat, then he will laugh, then he will hurt me. Her chains rattled as she turned her head away. He didn't force her. He didn't shout. He simply went back to the pilot's chair and sat down. Her heart pounded. Why? Why not beat her into obedience? Why not mock her fear? Hours passed. The bread grew cold. Her hunger gnawed at her like a beast. At last, when the man wasn't looking, she reached for it with shaking hands. She tore off a small piece and tasted it. It was real, soft, warm, human food. Tears burned her eyes. She chewed slowly, afraid it might vanish. The man's voice broke the silence again. You don't have to be afraid. Her body froze. The words felt like knives. Did he enjoy pretending to be kind before he showed his cruelty? She whispered, her voice sharp. Why did you buy me? What do you want? He looked at her. His eyes were calm, unreadable. Not what you think. She shook her head. I know men like you. You want slaves. You want. Her voice cracked. You will not break me. For the first time, he sighed. A long, tired sigh. Then he turned back to the controls, saying nothing more. Her confusion grew. She hugged her knees tighter. Every moment with him twisted her mind. She had known evil masters, cruel masters, laughing masters, but never silent ones. That night, when the ship entered silent drift mode, he unchained her wrists. The clink of the lock opening shocked her. She stared at him, her eyes wide. "You're not a prisoner here," he said. "Rest. The bed is yours." She could barely breathe. Her wrists were free, yet fear wrapped tighter around her than any chain. Was this another trick? Give her comfort. Then take it away. Break her spirit piece by piece. He left her alone in a small room. The bed was soft. A blanket waited for her. The door did not lock, but she did not sleep. She sat in the corner, shaking, eyes wide open. She kept watching the door, waiting for it to burst open, waiting for the torture to begin. The hours dragged. The hum of the ship was the only sound. Her thoughts screamed inside her head. He is planning something. He must be. And yet, no one came. When morning lights glowed across the cabin, she was still awake. Her body ached, but her fear stayed sharp. She stepped out of the room slowly, expecting anger, expecting punishment for not obeying his order to rest. Instead, she found him already awake, sitting at the table, drinking something warm from a small cup. He looked at her once, then looked away. "Sit," he said simply. She hesitated. Her legs trembled. But she sat, ready for the worst. He pushed another piece of bread toward her. No tricks. No chains. Just food. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She ate quickly, her hunger stronger than her fear. And as she swallowed, terrible thought came into her mind. What if he truly doesn't want to hurt me? The thought scared her more than chains, because if it was true, then everything she knew about survival, about cruelty, about humans, would be wrong. And the idea of hope was more dangerous than fear. The girl sat in silence, chewing the last piece of bread slowly. She still could not understand. Days had passed since the man bought her, and yet no pain had come, no commands, no punishments. Only food, water, and freedom to walk inside the ship, but fear never left her. She stayed alert, watching his every move. She expected the cruelty to come at any moment. Masters liked to wait until their slaves felt safe before breaking them. Maybe this was his plan too. The man spoke little. He moved with quiet steps, repaired the ship, checked the controls, and sometimes just sat staring at the stars outside the window. His silence was heavy, but not sharp. It was not the silence of someone hiding laughter. It was the silence of someone carrying weight. Still, she did not trust him. One evening, she found herself wandering the ship's narrow halls. She passed the storage bay and saw him inside, working on a broken panel. Sparks flew as he welded wires back into place. She froze at the doorway, her breath caught. The sparks lit up his face. That was when she noticed something new. Scars, not small scars, but long, deep ones across his arms and shoulders. Old wounds. Some looked burned, some cut. Her chest tightened. These were not the scars of a man who lived in comfort. They were scars of someone who had suffered. He turned his head slightly, noticing her, and she stepped back quickly, fear rushing in again. "You can come in," he said softly. Without looking at her, she hesitated, then forced herself to step forward, her bare feet light on the metal floor. She kept her distance, watching his hands work. "Why? Why don't you hurt me?" she asked, her voice sharp, defensive. His hands paused on the wires. He didn't look at her. "Because I don't want to." She laughed bitterly. "Liar. No one buys a slave to be kind." At last, he looked at her. His eyes were steady, not angry, not mocking, just calm. "Then why do you think I did?" he asked. She had no answer. She turned away, hugging her arms. Confusion twisted inside her. That night, she lay on the soft bed he had given her, staring at the ceiling. She could not sleep. Every kindness only made her more uneasy. Leave, he wanted. To torture her. Why wait? If he wanted her obedience, why not demand it? Her mind chased itself in circles. Maybe he enjoys watching me afraid. Maybe he wants me broken first. Maybe. But then she remembered his scars. And for the first time, she wondered if he was not her enemy, but something else entirely. The next day, she found him in the kitchen area, sitting with a cup of something hot in his hands. He gestured toward another cup waiting on the table. "Drink," he said simply. She hesitated, then sat down slowly. The warmth of the cup touched her fingers. She sipped carefully. The taste was strong, bitter, but strangely comforting. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Who hurt you?" The man's hand tightened around his cup. His eyes lowered. "Long story," he said. She leaned forward. "Slavers." He looked at her. His jaw tightened. Yes. A silence stretched between them. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes, pain. Deep, hidden pain. Her own fear softened, just for a moment. Then, "Why save me?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He only stood, placed his empty cup on the counter, and walked away. Confusion burned in her chest. She wanted to shout after him, to demand answers. But her voice stayed trapped inside. Later, she wandered into the control room. He was sitting there, watching the stars again. His face reflected in the glass looked older, heavier. She sat quietly behind him. She wanted to ask more, but she feared his silence more than his words. The stars outside looked endless, stretching forever. And in that moment, she felt something strange. She wasn't chained. She wasn't locked. She could run. But she didn't. Single quotes. Why? Question haunted her. When night came again, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the soft hum of the ship, thinking of his scars, his silence, his strange kindness. Part of her heart whispered, "He saved you." Another part shouted, "He will hurt you." He must. The battle inside her grew stronger. With every passing hour, she closed her eyes, remembering his calm voice, his steady hands, his tired eyes. And against her will, she felt something dangerous. Something she had not felt in years. Hope, that maybe, just maybe, this man was different. The ship drifted through silent space, far from any world, far from any law. The girl had begun to move more freely inside the cabin. Her chains were gone, her steps lighter, but her fear never fully left. Every day, she watched the man carefully. He gave her food, water, and space. He never shouted, never raised a hand. Yet he also never explained why. That why was a storm inside her mind. One night, the hum of the engines echoed softly through the halls. She wandered near the cockpit and stopped at the doorway. The man sat alone, his face dim in the glow of the controls. He wasn't flying. He wasn't working. He was just staring into the darkness of space. And then she heard him whisper, "I couldn't save her." Her body froze. He didn't know she was there. His voice was low, heavy, as if pulled down by memories too sharp to carry. "I should have fought harder, should have paid more, should have done anything, but I failed." The girl's breath caught in her throat. Who was he talking about? His hands gripped the edge of the console. His knuckles turned white. "I can't forget." Her face. The chains, the screams, and then nothing. Gone, because I was too weak. Silence filled the cabin again. The girl stepped back quickly, her heart racing. She returned to her room, her mind burning. Who was the one he couldn't save? A wife? A daughter? A friend? And why now was he saving her instead? The next day, she couldn't hold her question inside. As he sat at the table eating, she spoke. "You lost someone." He looked at her, surprised. "You were listening." She lowered her eyes but didn't back down. "Who was she?" He set his fork down slowly. His face grew tight. For a long moment, he said nothing. She thought he would send her away, maybe finally show anger. But then he sighed. "She was my sister," he said at last. His voice was rough, dry like sand. "Taken by slavers when I was young. I tried to stop them. I begged, I fought, but I was just one man. They beat me, left me broken, and sold her off like she was nothing." The girl's chest ached as his words cut through the silence. "I searched for years," he continued. "Spent everything I had, but she was gone. No record, no trail. Just gone." His eyes met hers. For the first time, she saw not calmness, but deep pain. "I swore," he whispered, "if I couldn't save her, then I would save others, as many as I could, even if it was too late for her. It doesn't have to be too late for you." The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. For so long, she had believed every master was cruel, that no one bought a slave except to cause pain. But here, in front of her, was a man who bought not to break, but to protect. Confusion burned inside her. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part screamed that it was a trick, that hope was poison. "Why me?" she whispered at last. "Because you were there," he said simply, "and I could not walk away." Silence hung between them. The hum of the ship was the only sound. Her eyes filled with tears, but she turned away quickly. She didn't want him to see her cry. She didn't want to feel weak. That night, she lay awake on the bed, her thoughts tearing her apart. He had scars. He had pain. He had loss, just like her. And for the first time, she didn't see him as a master, but as something else, a broken man. Still fighting against the darkness, when morning came, she found him fixing a piece of equipment in the engine bay. She walked up slowly, her hands trembling. "Your sister," she whispered. "I'm sorry." He looked at her. His expression softened, just slightly. "You don't need to be sorry," he said. "You just need to live. That's all I want." The words cut deeper than chains ever had. For years, she had been told she was nothing. Property. A tool. But here was a man who asked nothing of her, who wanted nothing but her freedom. It made no sense. It felt impossible, and yet it was real. That night, as she sat alone, she whispered to herself, "He saved me. But why do I still feel afraid?" Because fear was all she had ever known. And learning to trust him might be harder than surviving the slavers, but a seed had been planted, a seed of truth. The days stretched quietly inside the ship. The girl no longer kept herself locked in her room all the time. She began to step out more often, walking the narrow halls, sitting at the table when he ate, sometimes standing near the cockpit while he piloted. The fear was still there, sharp like a blade in her chest, but now it mixed with something strange. Curiosity. She could not ignore what he had told her. His sister, his pain, his scars. It made him different from the monsters she had known before, and yet her heart whispered, "Be careful. Kindness can still be a trap." One morning, he found her in the storage bay. She was holding a small piece of cloth, one of the rags he used for cleaning. She turned it over and over in her hands, like it was treasure. He stood at the doorway. "Do you miss your world?" he asked quietly. Her head jerked up. The question pierced her. She had not thought of home in so long. Her lips trembled. "I don't remember much," she admitted. Her voice was soft, weak. "They took me when I was young. I don't even Know if my family is alive." He nodded slowly, not pressing her further. Sometimes memories hurt more than chains. His words touched her, though she tried to hide it. She turned away, but for the first time, she didn't feel like prey under his gaze. She felt seen. That evening, as the ship drifted quietly, he placed 2 plates of food on the table. She hesitated, then sat across from him. For a while, they ate in silence. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was shaking, but steady enough. "When they captured me, they burned my village. They took the strong first. The rest, they killed. I survived because I was small, but I saw everything. The fire, the screams." Her fork clinked against the plate. She could not finish her food. He looked at her, his eyes dark with sorrow. "I'm sorry." No one had ever said those words to her before. Not once. Her chest tightened, and for the first time, she did not look away. She let him see the tears in her eyes. "Why do you care?" she whispered. His voice was firm, but gentle. "Because you're not a slave, you're a person, and no one should forget that." The words broke something inside her. She turned her face away, covering it with her hands, but the tears flowed freely. She wept, not quietly, not carefully, but openly. He didn't move to comfort her. He didn't try to touch her or speak more. He simply sat, giving her the space to cry without shame. And that silence felt more powerful than any words. The days after were different. She began to talk more, little pieces of her story slipping out. He listened quietly, never judging, never rushing. Sometimes he told her small things about his own life, the planets he had visited, the odd jobs he had taken, the battles he had barely survived. He never spoke of his sister again. But she didn't need him to. She could see her shadow in his every choice, in the way he treated her with a care she didn't understand. Slowly, her fear loosened its grip. Not gone, not yet, but weaker. One night, when the ship was quiet and the stars were bright outside, she found herself standing near him in the cockpit. He didn't notice her at first, his eyes locked on the endless void. "Do you ever stop feeling afraid?" she asked suddenly. He looked at her, startled. Then he shook his head. "No, but fear can guide you if you let it. Fear keeps you alive." She frowned. "Fear also kills." His lips curved into something close to a sad smile. "So does hope. But we need both." She thought about his words long after he left the cockpit. The next day, she tried something new. When he placed food in front of her, she whispered, "Thank you." It was only 2 words, but his eyes softened. He nodded once, as if the small gesture meant more than she realized. That night, as she lay in bed, she realized she no longer feared the sound of his footsteps outside her door. The silence no longer felt dangerous. Something inside her was changing. She was still afraid. She was still broken. But for the first time, she was not alone, and the bond between them, fragile as glass, had begun to grow. The ship glided silently through the void. Inside, the air felt lighter than before. The girl no longer kept her distance at every moment. She had begun to speak more, even share quiet laughter once or twice. The bond between her and the man was still fragile, but it was real. Yet peace in the galaxy was always short. It began with a sound. A soft, sharp beep from the control panel. The man's head snapped toward the screen. Red lines blinked. A signal. The girl sitting near the table felt her chest tighten. "What is it?" His face grew grim. "A tracker. Someone followed us." Her blood ran cold. "The slavers." He nodded once. "They don't let their property go easily. They want you back." Fear stabbed through her like a knife. Her body shook, old memories flooding back. Cages, whips, burning fire. "No," she whispered. "I can't go back." His voice was steady, strong. "You won't, I promise." But already, the ship shuddered. Lights flashed across the cockpit. Another vessel appeared on the scanner, fast and armed. The girl gripped the edge of the table. "They'll kill you." "Not if I kill their engines first," he said, his hands moving over the controls with precision. The ship roared to life, thrusters burning bright. Stars blurred as they dove into a sharp turn. The enemy vessel followed close behind. Blasts of plasma fire lit the void. Explosions rattled the hull. She screamed as sparks showered from the ceiling. The man's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold on." He twisted the ship through an asteroid field, giant rocks spinning around them like gods throwing dice. The girl clung to the seat beside him, her heart racing. Every second felt like the last dot. The slaver ship fired again. A blast slammed in two. Their rear thruster, the ship lurched, alarms screaming. "They'll board us," she cried. "Not if I can help it," he growled. His hands danced over the controls. The ship spun, slipping between two massive asteroids. The slaver vessels scraped against stone, but kept coming. The girl's terror grew. She had lived her life in chains. She knew what it meant to be caught again. The pain, the humiliation, the endless nights. But then she looked at him. His jaw clenched, his eyes sharp with focus. He was fighting not just for himself, but for her. Something inside her shifted. She could not just sit and wait for death. "I can help," she said suddenly. He shook his head. "Stay down." "No," she snapped, fear sharpening into fire. "I know how they fight. I know their tricks. Let me help." For a moment, he glanced at her. Then, to her shock, he nodded. "Take the rear controls. If they try to board, vent the back chamber. Don't hesitate." Her hands trembled as she slid into position. She had never been trusted with anything before. Not freedom, not choice. But now, in this storm of danger, he trusted her. The enemy ship loomed closer, weapons glowing. She saw the boarding clamps unfold, preparing to latch onto them. Her heart thundered. This is it. This is the moment. The clamps extended, reaching for the hull. The girl slammed the release. The rear chamber opened, sucking air and debris into space. The force ripped one of the clamps away before it could lock. The slaver ship reeled, pulling back. "Yes," she gasped, her hands shaking with adrenaline. The man fired the forward cannons. Bolts of light slammed into the enemy's engine. Sparks erupted across their hull. The slaver vessel spun out of control, drifting into the asteroid belt. A massive rock struck it head-on. The explosion lit the darkness like a dying star. The girl covered her ears, her breath wild, her whole body shaking. Then silence returned. The man leaned back in his chair, sweat running down his forehead. His voice was calm but heavy. "It's over, for now." She looked at him, eyes wide. I helped." He gave her the smallest of smiles. "Yes, you did." Her chest swelled with something she had not felt in years. Pride. Not as a slave, not as property, but as someone who fought, who mattered. But fear still lingered. She whispered, "They'll send more, won't they?" His face darkened. "Yes, slavers never forgive, and they never forget." The girl wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. But then she remembered his words, his promise. "You won't go back." And for the first time, she believed him. Still, the danger had changed everything. Their bond was no longer just quiet meals and shared words. Now it was tested in fire. And somewhere deep inside, she realized a truth that frightened her more than the slavers. She was no longer surviving for herself alone. She was surviving for him, too. The silence after battle was heavy. Smoke curled from broken wires. The ship's lights flickered, and the smell of burnt metal filled the air. The girl sat frozen in her chair, her chest rising and falling in sharp breaths. Her hands still shook. From what she had done, she had fought. She had survived. The man leaned over the controls, his face pale with exhaustion. He checked the scanners again and again. Only empty stars surrounded them. No pursuers, no signals. For now, they were safe. The girl whispered, "We won." He gave a small nod. "We survived." Her throat tightened. Survival had always been her dream, her only dream. But now, as the weight of silence pressed on her, she realized something new. She didn't just want survival anymore. She wanted life. The next days were spent repairing the ship. The man worked long hours, replacing panels, sealing cracks, welding broken pieces. She helped in small ways, handing tools, holding wires steady, cleaning burns. Each time she helped, he thanked her. Simple words, but powerful. No master had ever thanked her before. At night, when the stars shone through the windows, they sometimes sat together in silence. Not fearful silence, but something softer, almost peaceful. But the fear still lingered. The slavers would not stop. They would send more ships, more hunters. Freedom was never simple. One night she asked the question that had been burning inside her. "What will happen to me?" He looked at her, his tired eyes meeting her silver ones. "What do you want to happen?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. She had never been asked what she wanted. Choice was a word that did not belong to slaves. She lowered her head. "I don't know." Then, he said quietly, "You will have time to decide. No chains, no orders, just time." Her eyes stung with tears. She turned away before he could see. Days later, the ship landed on a quiet world at the edge of the galaxy. A planet of green fields and endless sky. No slave markets, no hunters. Just freedom. The girl stepped onto the soft grass, her bare feet sinking into the earth. The air was clean, warm against her skin. She closed her eyes and felt the wind touch her face. For the first time in years, she felt alive. The man stood behind her, silent as always, giving her space. He carried no chains, no weapons, only patience. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Why me? You could have left me. You could have saved someone else." He shook his head. "Because you were there. Because I couldn't walk away again." The words struck her deep. He wasn't her master. He wasn't her captor. He was our savior. That night, as they camped under the stars, she finally spoke the words she had been holding inside. "When you bought me, I thought it was the end. I thought you wanted to break me, but you didn't." She swallowed hard, tears filling her eyes. "You saved me." His gaze softened. "No, you saved yourself. I only gave you the chance." Her tears fell, but they were not only tears of pain. They were tears of release, of freedom. For years, she had been nothing but property, a tool, a voice silenced by chains. "For me." First time, she felt like a person again. She whispered, "I don't want to run anymore. Not from them, not from you. I want to stay." His eyes widened slightly, then softened again. He nodded once, slow and steady. "Then stay," he said simply. The fire crackled between them. The night sky stretched wide, full of stars. She lay back on the grass, breathing deeply, the chains of her past finally breaking inside her heart. She was no longer a slave. She was free. Not because the slavers were gone. Not because danger had ended, but because she had chosen. She chose to trust. She chose to live. She chose to stay. The man sat beside her, silent as always, but she no longer feared his silence. Now, it was a silence of safety, of peace. And as she closed her eyes, she whispered into the night, words carried by the wind. I thought you bought me to hurt me, but you gave me back my soul. The stars above shimmered, endless and eternal. For the first time in her life, she believed in tomorrow.